project in C++ called employee database in C++, which is simply creating a simple console application in C++. These are the functionalities in C++. Then this is how the application looks. This is how the application will look. So we'll be building this project today in C++. So implementing this employee database. It's a simple project. Without further ado, let's get on to it. In this project, it's a simple project, a console application where a user can add an employee to the database. The user can show all the employees in the database, can update, can remove and exit. It's a simple project. This project is not very different from the last project we have. But the reason why I made this project, I want to show you something or introduce you to something which I think it's important, which is the this separation of files or source file here, which in this project will have 3 separate files or a class. That is, we have a header file, we have this specification file here, and we have our main file here. Now let me explain some benefits of doing so. Now imagine if you remember, if you watched our last project here, you remember that we used to have only one file here, one source file here. We only used to have one source file, and now we have these many files here, which I'll explain why do we have so many here. Now the reason behind this, the separation of file here, is that imagine you have a very big project, that is, you have so many classes, and you have many functions. Now that means if you're writing this whole project in one file, that is, we have a long, so many lines here. We'll have so many lines, that is, it will take time even you to find something just to make change. Now it will take time, and you will take time to find where maybe a certain function is located. You cannot find it because of many things here, and it won't be easy to read and manage because everything is mixed together. Classes, project, and main function is also there. It's also there. But if you separate a file like this one here, you see it's clear, it's organized, it's nicely, and you can see here we only have a class in this file here, and we have our functions here, public functions here. Then the functions are not defined inside the class or are just below the class, but rather defined in another file called this header file, and this implementation file needs to have the same name, but the header file ends with a .h, that is the header file. Now the cpp file, that is the specification file, ends with a cpp extension there. Now in this file here, we only define your functions now the way we used to do, but in the previous project, we used to have a class here and define the methods just below the class. That is, we used to have following the same process. That is, you need to have the class name, you have the scope resolution operator, and the function name here, which is the same method, but now it is defined in another file. Then the first thing you need to do in order to define them, you need to include now the library, this header file here. You need to include this header file. That is okay compiler. Now I'll be using some methods from this class. Now please remember them. That's all you're trying to say there, and then you can define them here. It's more, this class is more like an abstract. It's not defined them for these are just definition. So here you have the implementation. Now this is how the functions are implemented. So then we have another class here called a date. That's why you have two header files. You have two header files, a date class and the employees class here. This one also, its implementation file it has the same name but ends with a .cpp file. .cpp, sorry. Then here also we have to include this header file because you're using members of this class here. If you do not include this library here, that is, you have an error because the compiler will not know this method you're talking about, will not know that one, will not even know. In fact, the compiler will not know whatever is going here. does not know anything from here. But if you include there, then we'll take care. Oh, these are defined in this class here. Then we have your main. Your main is simple as this. It's simple as that. No class, no functions. Just a simple class. Sorry, a simple file here. Just with the we have the options, and then we execute according to the option. We only call the method that is required only. Then that's one benefit of separating your file, that is called the organization, code organization. It's easy to manage the project in this way. Then we have another one which is time, or build time, or compilation time. Now for this one, the compilation time is reduced because imagine that other compilers work one file at a time. That is, if they start working on this file, to look on this file, then go to the another file. Now if you have this, if you separated the file and then you wanted to make a change here, maybe let's say you wanted to add something here. No, what happened now? If you add something here, then your compiler, you don't have to compile the whole project. That is, you don't have to compile the whole project and then compile. You just have to save this file only, and then everything will be done. You don't have to compile, because compilation for large project might take time, for large project, so it might take time. So if you separate your file this way and then you make a change here, you only have to compile this part here. You don't have to compile the whole project. So that's another one benefit, which is very useful, because you don't have to wait the whole time. Every time you make a change, then you need to wait for the compilation time. You don't have to go through such pain. And then it's called reusability, and then it's easy to reuse your code. Let's say you have another project. Now in this project, you find that, no man, I have the same class that I need to use here, which is date class. All you have to do is just to go and take this header file and this implementation file and add to that project. It's easy as that. You don't have to restart, refresh, and write the same class. So that's code reusability. And then another thing is, you can easily share your code, or if you're working with other people here, maybe you have this class here, then you want someone to write the application for you, then you can simply say that, hey, I have this class here, which I have this get average. This get average, it only what does it do? It computes the age. Then the other programmer can only use these functions here, or this class here, knowing what they do. But the only thing that is hidden is how they do it, how these functions do whatever they do. So that's another key in separating your files. Information hiding. The implementation is hidden, so the user cannot know, or the other programmer cannot know how does this function work. All they know is what they do, but they don't know how it does. So that's information hiding. So they cannot copy, or they do some things to benefit them or anything, but they can only work with these forgiven functions here, but they don't know how so they cannot manipulate them, because they don't know how they even work. All they know is that if you use this function, you get an age. It returns an age as an integer, and given the given the year of birth and the current date. So yeah, that's a benefit of separating your files. Now let's start with our program. Now let's start. I'll just explain each file here, line by line. From each file I will explain and what's going on. Yeah, it's simple as that. Now guys, we'll begin from this class here, which is the employee class. Or in fact, let me begin from this class here, since I'm using it in this class. Let's start from this class here. In this class, we have a day class. We start here by defining the class. That is to say, if the class is not defined, define the class. Now, what we want to do here is that the compiler will check first if the class exists. Then if it does not exist, it will define the class for us, which is the class date. Then we have our class here, class date, that has the default constructor. We have our setters for a day, a month, and a year. We have another getters here, which is the getter for the day, for the month, for the year. Then we have our private members here, which is the day, month, and the year. Now the set one sets the day, the month. We're setting the month in this one. Then here we set the year. We get the day, we get the month, and we get the year here. Then this class is very simple, this one. Then we go and implement our functions from another file, which is the date.cpp. Then we not forgetting to include our header file, and then we start by defining our constructor and initialize our data members here, which is the day, the month are set to 0. Then we have our set day. Then we set the day here. We set the day. Then what I want you to do now, before you set the day, you should remember something. Some errors might occur when setting the day. So I write this to-do list for you. That is, I want you to add validate this one. Let me first begin here, then I'll come back for what will happen here. Let's first come and let me first explain here. Then we have the set month here, which is we're setting the month, and then we set the year. Then we come and get the day, get the month, get this class is very simple. It's only getters and setters for day and month, and year. It's very simple, this one. And then we move on to other class here, which is the employee class here. Now in this employee class, we include this date because we'll be using the some data we'll use some members of this class. Therefore, we include this class here. Then including our input output stream, our file stream, our set time, our input output manipulator. Our manip. Then include our string here using namespace standard. Then we have this class here, is class employee, and then we have some public members here. A constructor. Then we have the int age, which is the returns an int. The get age, it returns an integer. What it does on it just computes the age given the year of birth and the current year. Then we have this set date of birth. Now this function, it takes parameters. It takes day, month, and year as parameters, integer parameters. Then it sets the day, the month, and the year. Then we will see where it sets those values. Then we get the day here. Remember, look at this one itself. What it does not return is like this one. It's not a int. It does not return anything, but it prints. Now this one, I use this one to print the date of birth. Now we have this read data. What it do? It only reads the data from the user. It only asks the user to input data. Then we have this one, show data. That one is used to print the data. Then we have this one, which is the write record. Now all it does is it prints to the file. Now prints to the file. That is our database. Then we have this one here, which is read. This one, it reads from our database. It reads from our database. So that's enough about our function. And then we have some members here, which have our private members here, which is a character, an array of characters. In fact, we have the first name, last name, job title. We have the record date. Then we have the date of birth, which is now here. Look here. We have a class now here. We have this date, which is the date of birth. Now, which means that this variable now is an object of type date. That is the date of birth. The date of birth has a day, has a month, has a month and a year. So that's why I only have this date of birth. It has the day, a month, and a year. Then we have a salary, which is a float of type float. Then we move on to defining our functions now in this file, which is the employee.cpp. As I said, always remember that the employee should be the same. The header file should be the same as the implementation file. For the names, then only the last part is different. That is the extension. That is, we have this .h here, and then in the implementation file we have the .cpp. Now the syntax is still the same when we defined our methods just below the class. So the method is still the same. You have your class name, it is the scope, and the method. Then in our constructor, we initialize our members here. Then we move onto the set date of birth. Now this one, as I said, this one sets. Why did I write it here? It's a set one. It set the date of birth. This one. Now it takes the day, month, and the year, and then set. As I said earlier, that the date has three parts now: a day, a month, and a year. Now, if you look here, the date of birth has a what? Has a day, has a month, and has a year. So this set date of birth function here, which is the set DOB, is it uses the date. Since date is an object of date, so it has these methods here. It has all these things here. It has all of them. So that's why we have a set, another function with the set day. So it takes the day and set the day into the date, and then takes the month and set it, and takes the year and set it here. So this is how the date of birth is set here. Then we move on to the print date of birth, that is the void get date of birth. As I said, this one does not return anything, but rather it prints the date of birth. It prints the day, then prints the dash, then print the month using the get method from the day class. The get method from the day class. Let me show you. It uses the getters here. It uses those getters here. Then it prints the day, the month here, a dash, and a year. It prints the year. Then that's as simple as that. This one. Then we move onto another class here, which is called the get age, which returns an integer. That this is an integer that it returns. This one here, we're getting the time, that is the local time. Remember, another thing I want to highlight is that this program, it uses the local time. If your time is wrong, that is, if your time maybe is not correct, but therefore your output might not be correct, because this one is working on the local time, that is your device time. So we're getting here the time, which is the local time, then converting it into a string. That in fact we have a pointer to that time now. And then we have this current time now, which is an integer. Remember, this one, this time here begins after 1990. After 19,000, 1900 in fact. Let me put this after this year here. It begins after this year. So if you want it to begin, so you need to add this part in order to be on the current year. So you need to add this part here, otherwise it won't be correct. Now this, we have the year born. We're getting the year that was inputted by the user. That is, we get the date of birth, that is date of birth dot year. Now we're getting the year that was entered by the user. And then if you find a difference between the current year and the year born, you will get the age. That is how the age is computed here and returned as an integer. So whenever we call this function get age, it returns the age. Now we move on to another function called the read data. The read data now, we have another local variable here, which is the day, the month, and the year. We have the date, the update object here. Then, as I said, this one, it reads the data from the user. Now we have asked the user to enter the first name, we get the first name. Ask for last name, we get the last name. Ask for a date of birth in this format, the date, month, and the year. That is, we get the day, we get month, and we get the year. Then we ask for a job title, then you get the job title. Ask for a salary, then you get the salary. And then we set our date of birth, given taking whatever that is the user entered here, taking these values that was what was inserted here, then set them using the date of birth using the set of the date of birth. That is this method here. Let's use our control enter. Then it takes us to this part here, that if you call this function, it will take the day, month, and the year and set them accordingly here. And then we go back to where were we, into this function here. Yeah, we were here. Then we get the age. That is, whenever you call this function here, in fact, you do not need to call this function here because you don't need to call this function. You don't need to compute this part here because it returns. You do not want to get the age here. But let's comment it out, that one. Then we have our time here. Another here. Here too we have our time, the current time or current date based on the system clock. As I said here, it's very important. It's based on the system clock. So if your clock is different, that is your date to be precise, because we're working on the date here. If your date is different, then you might get different answers. Then we have the pointer now to this time here. Then what you want to do now, we're converting this time into a string. After converting to a string form, then I take this whatever that was here, which is the time in fact, and I'm converting to change it as a pointer to a character. Now I want it to be a string like this one, so I just made it to be a string so that I can use this method here, which is the string copy. I wanted to copy whatever that is on this current date here, and then set it to another string. The record date is a string. It says, it's an array of characters. So I wanted to take the string and set it into the record date using this string copy. The string copy, this is defined in the C string here. It's defined in this class here, this C string. So yeah, then we have that's enough. That's it about this function, the read data. It only asks the user to input the data. Then we have another function here. We have another, it's a global variable, this one. I'm just using this one to count the number of records. It's a global variable. Then we have this show data. The show data, as I said, it only prints the data using this format here, that it prints the record ID, that is, then it prints the first name, it prints the last name, it prints the date of the day of birth, the month of birth, and the year of birth. Then we have the what do you call the set the age. Now we're getting the age here, so the age is correct in this part. Now here it was not correct, hence I commented it out, because I'm just saying return, but return to a, what am I going to do with that data? So that's why I'm commenting out. I don't need it there, so I only need it here, get age, and then I have the job title, salary, and the record date. Now these ones are set with, I'm setting the width now. You will see the space in between these. You put in the record, and then you will see some space there in between ID and the first name, and the same space between the last name and then the day. Then these numbers are different because you the one who will set them like according the way you want them to be. Whenever you run the program, then you say, okay, I need to make change here, then I want to make change here. That's how you manipulate those numbers and then get what you want, the results you want. Then I'm just printing this line after I've finished. After printing each record, you print the line, then print another record, then print the line. If you were to call this function maybe in a loop, what will happen? It will print these details, then print this line, and then print another detail, print this line, print another details, print this line. So that's how I want this to be. So we have this another function, which is write record. Now I said this write record, it only writes this data that was inputted by user, this read data, that the data that was right here, it writes that data into that file, which is our database. Now our file is the employees db, which is employees database.txt. Then we open it in a binary mode, then we append, that is, we don't want to delete anything that exists in the file, but we want to add on whatever that's on the file. And then we call the function read data. As I said, that we use this function to ask for user input, which is the read data. We call that function. Then after calling that function, remember that these values, after getting the values from that function, we will set them in these data members. in these data members. Now, after setting them in these data members, this line, what does it do? This line, where were we? Sorry, yeah, well, this one here, it reads whatever that is on the data members and write it into that file. So it takes whatever on those data members and write it into a file. Then we have an output.file. I mean, we close our file now because we no longer need it. And then I say, okay, what this line here, I say it takes the first name, that is first name and the last name, added successfully. That we print the name as a name and then say added successful after closing the file, after adding that person to the particular person into the database. Now, and then we have another variable, which is local variable, yes or no. In fact, it's an option. Then I ask the user, if the user wants to add another employee, then the user will press 1 if yes, and press 2 if no. That is, then we get the option, the choice here. And then if the user chooses 1, then we clear the screen first, and then call this function again. That is, we'll start from the beginning now. We're starting from the top here, that we open the file again, and then open in binary mode and append. And then we call this read data to ask for user input, and then write whatever that is inputted into that file. Then we close the file again. Then after that, we see that the user and they use this person is added successfully, and then we ask again if you want to add another user, and then if no, then after if no, then we return, that is, we return where this function was called. Then we have another function which called the read record. The read record only reads the data from the database, that is our text file. Now here we have an input stream, then we open the same file now in binary mode. Then we check now, because we're writing from a file. This is different from the writing to that file. You don't have to check if the file exists here, because if the file does not exist, the new file will be created and named, and it will be named as employee db.txt. So you don't need to check whenever you are writing the file. You don't need to check. If the file does not exist, a new file will be created for you. But now, if you are reading from a file, that is, you are reading from a file, and then you need to check if the file I'm reading from, it does exist now. Then that's why I say if not file, that is, check if the file exists. If the file does not exist, then we say error in opening, file not found. That's what we are now. We're letting the user that no, the error occurred. Then maybe the file does not exist. Maybe you inputted a wrong name here, or maybe the file is removed or anything. Then this is error will okay. This is the type of error that okay, maybe you gave the wrong name, or the file is removed, or because the program this source file and this text file have to be in the same folder. So if this file is moved maybe to elsewhere, then you get an error. Then you have another, or we clear the screen after that. Then because we want to print now, so we want to clear whatever that's on the screen, and then print that the record in the database, and then we print we have the first name, last name. I wanted to print this in some sort of a tabular format, so I have the first name, we have this number here, then we have the name, last name, date of birth, we have the age, job title, salary, and the record date. Then we print this line here. Then we have a loop here now, while not end of file, that is while we have not reached it, while reading the file. So you want to say, okay, while I'm reading the file, while you have not reached the end of the file, this is the end of the file. So if you have not reached the end of file, that is, do this. If you have not reached the end of file, then do this. What are you doing? You then check if is there anything as if here we're checking is there anything in this file. If there's anything, if there's anything in this file to read, then it returns a value which is greater than 0. Then you call this method show data. The show data it's only output the data to the screen. This is how it prints the data. As I said earlier, that if you call it in a loop, it will print the first record in the line, and then another record in the line. As long as there's data in the file, it will print it using in this format here. Then we have where were we? Show the data. Then else, that is, if there's nothing else to read, If there's nothing else to read, you print this line here and then print the number of records in the database, that is the record ID. As I said that we're using this record ID to count the number of records in the ID. How does it count the number of records how does it count the number of records? Whenever it is incremented by 1, whenever you call this function here, with this record ID, whenever you call this show data, here it is, the record ID is here. It is incremented whenever you call this. That is, since the show data is in a loop, if you call it the first time, the record ID is incremented by 1. Since it is 0, it is pre-incremented by 1. Therefore, it starts from 1. Then print the first record and the line. Then if there's another record, it prints again, which is you increment, which is 2. That's how it counts the number of records. It actually counts how it works as like how many times this function has been called. If you call the first time, it increment by 1. If you call it maybe 5 times, then you have 5 records. So that's how it counts the number of records. Then we have here another if here. Now I'm saying that if the value that is returned from this, that is, if there's nothing to read in this file, yes, maybe the file exists, because I said earlier that we need to check if the file exists. But the file might exist, but then maybe find that there's no data in the file, but the file do exist, but then there are no records. And if that's the case, then we have this error that no records found. Then we close our file. Then that's simply as that was our last function here from this class here, from this class employee. Then we need to move on to our main function now. From our main function here, we include our stream, and we only include this header file here, which is employee.h. Now this header file, we do not need to include this date here, because the date is already included in this header file here. So we'll not get any errors from using maybe this date of birth here, because the date is already included here, because this function, this class in fact knows what is date. So we only need to include this header file here, which is employee.h, then include our predefined library here, which is our stream, using namespace standard. And then we start with our main function now. Then we have our option. The option is used when whatever option that the user whatever the user wants to do, or whatever option the user chooses will be stored in this variable here. Then we have another variable, in fact another object of type employee, which is a variable of type employee. And then we say while 1, which is while true, and then we clear the screen first. Then while we clean the screen, even though we're starting the program, I'll clear the screen because at first, yes, there will nothing to clear. And then when a user chooses maybe anything here, then that thing maybe it chooses to print something from the screen, then the record will print it at the screen. And then when we're returning back here, then that's when this system close will work, because it will clear whatever that was printed before and start again from this welcoming page here. So that's it. Then here we ask the user now to choose. We have 5 options here, so the user chooses one of them, and then we get that option, which is an integer, and then we switch to the selected the selected option using the switch statement. Now in case the user chooses option 1, then we already clear the screen. That is, we clear this part here. Now we clear this part that was displayed from the screen. After clearing it, and then we call the write record. The write record, it writes the data to our database. It also uses the read data to ask the user to ask for user input. And then we pause the screen after that, then we break. The system pause is very important, because you don't want whenever a program finished executing, then it just closes, or go to the main or whatever. You want it to pause so that the user can see what happened if maybe there's an error that was printed. If you don't have this system.pause, the program will just close and return to wherever, maybe to this page if you wanted to return to this page, or to wherever it was, without waiting for the user. In fact, if using this close here, since we are using this system close with system clear, means, sorry, we clear the screen. So if you're using it, we need to also use the system pause here. Then we break, and then if a user chooses to show all the employees that is list, then we call this read record, which is a read the record from our database, and then we pause. After printing, we pause the record. Then the user can see what happens. Then if you press any key to continue, this clean will be cleared, and then this part will be printed again. And then from option 3, you is a homework. This one I will show you what to do. Then we have our default here, which is the invalid option. That is, if the user chooses neither of the options listed here, and then you get an error message. Then you pause the screen. Here we do not have a return 0 because it's not necessary, because you know that our main returns a 0, returns an integer by default. That's our main function, because if even if we have void here, you will get an error message that the main returns an integer. So by default, we know that the main returns a 0 by default. Then if returns another value, that's an error. Then let's compile our program and run and see what's going on here. Yeah, wait, it's compiling. Yes, it's finished. Now here we have our project here. Let's say our application is like this now. Now we say show all the employees in database. Let's show error in opening the file not found. Why do we get an error? Because the file does not exist. Let's see if the file exists in our program. Here we have this is our project. Here you can see we do not have any file named employees db database.txt. We do not have any text file here. You can see we do not have any text file. That's why we're getting this error we are getting from here. That is error in opening the file not found. Then, but if you start the project, if you add an employee, as I said earlier, you do not need to check the program if it exists. If you have, you do not need to check when writing to this project. You do not need to check if the file exists. You can see that we do not have an if statement that if the file exists. We do not have that, because if you are writing the file, if the file does not exist, a new file will be created for you. Now let's go and run this program and add. Now you see I'm adding, but I'm not gonna add. I'm just gonna close the program. So I wanna show you the file that is created. I'm gonna show you that this file is actually created here. Where's the text file? Let's look if we have a text file now. It should be here. We have our text file here, and you see it's empty here from our why it's not showing now. It's taking so long, but the text file is empty, and you can even see, in fact, look by the space here, it's empty. It's a text file and it's empty. I don't know why it's taking so long. Should show the preview here, or it's showing, but it's taking a bit long. You can see we have nothing here. We just have an empty text file. Then if we add, now let me run the program again and add maybe someone here in this file here. Now welcome. Now let's add someone here. Let me add Mgela. Then enter the date of birth in this format. That is, you need to enter the date. Let's say first of January. Let's say maybe 2000. Let's say 2000. Then the job title. Let's say this is a cashier. Maybe let's look at the retail store. Maybe it's a cashier. Cashier. Then Sarah. Let's say it's 2.5. Then enter. Then you can see that Yamkela Maculi added successfully. That is, then we have another options here. Give another option that we want to add another employee. Then if you say yes, then let's add another one here. Let's maybe say it's Keanu. The date of birth, let's say it's maybe 4th of April. maybe let's say 1996. Job title, maybe it's let's say maybe manager. Yeah, let's say manager. Then salary, let's say maybe 9,500. Sorry, 9,500. Then Keanu Perimal added successful. Do you want to end with another? We do not want to add another. Then press any key to continue. Then start again from the that. We start again from the first page now. Now let's see what is on our text file now. Let's see what is on our text file. Then we have C. It is written in I don't know what's it, but not readable. It's not easy to read, but you can see some things. But what is important that you can see there's something now in this file, and we have something in this file now. And let's go to our program and actually show what's really in there. You see now we have our. This is what we have. We added this first employee, which is Yamkela Matsuli. It is this date of birth is the 1st of January. Age, this is how the age is computed, because now it's 2022. Then this is when the year of birth is 2000. Then that is 2000. That is 2022 minus 2000. Then you get age, and then the job title is cashier. Is salary, which is 2.5, and the record date here. This is the record date here. Then you have this the second employee, which is Ken Perimal, on this date, date of birth. Then the age is computed according to this year. Then the job title is a manager, salary, and the record date. Then that's it. Then the total records here. Then we have our total record, and the no more end of records now. So yeah, that's it about this tutorial. I think it's very clear. It's very clear. But what I want to now, if you check maybe option 3, you cannot update, remove, you cannot remove, but you can exit. Now, as I said earlier, that I wanted to show you something that let's look here. You look at here at the to-do list. This is the list of things I want you to do now. If you come here on this part here, I want you to print the date. That is, the date should be printed as date, month, and year, not in this format here that I want to show you. Let's run again. That's the first thing I want you to do to practice how to work with date now. Let's show. You see the date now. You just print it as a string. That is Friday. It is a Friday. Today is Friday, November. Then there's date here, and then there's time, and then there's year. So what I want to do now is only print the date. That is the date. I should only print this 25 November. That is 25. Maybe it's 25 10 and or 25 November 2022. That's what I want you to do here as a practice. Then another thing that I want you to do, I don't know what's going on with this thing. Maybe it's I don't know this. Since I updated my PC now, it's been doing this thing now, and I need the only way I can close it now is to force close it. Let me just use my CMD here, command prompt. Then I could just I need to force it in order to close the thing. I don't know what's going on with this. What's the name of this project? It's employee. It's employee database.exe. In order to close it now, I need to force close it now. I don't know why it's causing this thing. You see now it's closed. As long as I force it to close. Yeah, we have this thing now. Another I think I have another thing here I wanted you to do, which is let's see here, view to-do list. Yeah, we have these ones too. Yeah, we have these ones here. We have I want you to implement those methods here. I want you to have those methods that a user must be able to search an employee, a user must be able to update an employee's details, a user must be able to add, must add must able to remove an employee from the database. That is these options here. You saw that this option that is these ones, the update and remove, are not there, and I want you to fix that. Then another thing I want you to do, what was it, let's see, what was it, project files, another thing, yeah, I think it's this one. Yes, I wanted to you, yeah, that's where I want you to validate the date before setting it. That is, you need to check if the date is between 1 and 31, because the date cannot be less than 1, a date cannot be greater than 31. And yeah, I think that's it for the date. It's simple as that. It has to be between this interval so that the user cannot enter. Because if instance, if you run for this program, for instance, sorry, yes, if you run this program and add a user, for instance, let's add another user, maybe Suzanne, maybe Suzanne, maybe I don't know, Ravi, maybe the date. If you say maybe 50, that is the day, and then the month, say maybe it's 20, and say the year it's maybe 1999, it still works. That's what I don't want to maybe say, I don't know, cleaner maybe. Spelling cleaner, let's say salary maybe 1.5, I don't know. Then Susan Ravi added successfully. That's not right. That's not right. That's not right, because that's true. You can see that if you, the you see the date and the month are so wrong. So I want you to fix that. You need to validate in it. You need to check that before setting the day has to be between this interval. Now, another thing here you need to do, I want you to validate this. What was this thing? Oh yeah, this is a day. Now I want you to validate the month. The month also has to be between 1 and 12. Should not allow the user to enter maybe any number greater than 12 or any number less than 0. You need to check if the month is between this interval. Then you can set. If is otherwise, it might print an error message to the user. No, your month is wrong. Then another thing you need to do is to validate the year. The year has to be between some values also, and you cannot enter a year which is greater than the current year. That's not possible. Another thing is the most important one. An employee cannot be less than 18 years. An employee cannot be less than 18 years. So you need to validate that. You need to check, that is, you need to check the year, the date of birth. You need to check, you need to also have a way of checking that the year that you have added. You need to check the age first. You need to, I think, somehow you need to call the age and determine if it's greater than 18. If it's greater or equal to 13, then you can set the year. Then if it's not, then you might, the user, an error message should be printed to the user that no, you are young to be working. So yeah, you need to fix that one too. I think that's it about what I wanted to do. Then after implementing those methods here, then you can come here and call them. That is, the option 3 is to update. Then you can call the update function here. After implementing these functions here, the search, update, and remove, then you can come here and call them now. You can call those functions in here. So yeah, thank you so much. That's it for this tutorial. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you have anything. If you have anything, I'll leave a link to the previous video in the comment section.